Most of us are experiencing this higher prices at the pump, with the average price of gasoline going up at least $1 per gallon just in the last month, with apparently no end in sight. So, in lieu of this, Georgia recently became the first state to at least temporarily forego its gasoline tax at the pump, which I think is a very good thing to do, and I'm going to tell you why. Before jumping right into this, I would just ask that if you're enjoying this and finding it informative or entertaining, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so I'll know what interests you and the channel will continue to grow. Thank you very much. Now, back to the episode. I came across an article on this very subject from USA Today, March 24th. And of course, instead of USA Today focusing on the practical side of this issue, how any gas tax negatively affects common working people's lives, it focused entirely on partisan politics, which basically goes nowhere. It's like hitting yourself in the head with a fucking hammer to stop a headache. So, what I'm going to say is basically what no one else will say, either because they are totally ignorant on the subject or don't have the balls to say. The absolute simplest reason why there should not be a gas tax is because it's totally undemocratic. The simple truth is a gasoline tax hurts lower and even moderate income working people far more than people with a good income. And those people are few and far between these days. And that should be as simple and obvious as the nose on your face, even if you're a Republican. You see, all of this is a harmful, vicious cycle going way back. The first state in the Union to enact this form of governmental piracy is the state I currently reside in. That's right, Oregon. Oregon was the first state with a gasoline sales tax in 1919. Way to go, Oregon. It wasn't until 1932 that the federal government decided to get in on the racket, and things have only spiraled down since then. Now, I feel pretty certain for those of you who may disagree with me that you're wanting to go tell me all about the wonderful things that have been done and paid for by that gasoline tax revenue stream. And I'm going to tell you that it is one of the cleverest money misdirection schemes ever devised. Okay, before I start going into explaining this gas tax revenue money misdirection scheme, I'd like to clear up my personal position concerning taxes. I am in no way anti tax as a whole, but my ideas on taxation are wildly different than the current governmental criminal tax scheme imposed on us every April 15th. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to go into explaining that in an upcoming episode. Because, of course, tax season is upon us, and I'm looking forward to giving you a new deal on taxes, like one you've never heard before. So look for that episode coming probably next week, because, like I said, I guarantee it's like something you've never heard before. Now back to the current gas tax scheme. Just so you know, I'm not going to be using any tax techno jargon because that's the psychology behind the criminality. I just prefer going into it in broad, simple terms to explain this in a way that's easy for anybody to understand. As I'm sure many of you know, or at least should know, gasoline tax amounts per gallon can appear to vary tremendously state to state. Just stick with me and you'll understand. According to the government's numbers, here's where just 3 states currently stand. The least amount being paid, and all amounts here are rounded up for the sake of simplicity, is Alaska at about 9%. The state of Oregon, where I currently reside, 39%. And the greatest amount being being paid is California at 71%. Holy fucking Christmas Jew. So why do these taxation percentages vary so wildly? That's a good question. Glad you asked. There are three general conditions that, put together, determine gasoline taxation. It basically works like this. Number one, population. Generally speaking, the way it works is that it's far easier to tax a much smaller population a certain tax rate for a product or service than the reverse. It is what I call consumer mandibalism. Two, a state government's ability to successfully convince its population of not only the necessity of a given tax, but its ability to corral the consumer herd and subtly but forcibly install the idea that a given tax, once it has been established, must always be increased, and that the wonderful outcomes of those increased taxes are always just around the corner. It's just like the sign I have outside my door, free beer tomorrow. Three, appealing to the citizens' blatant self-interest. Generally speaking, most people don't like new or additional taxes, and the criminals in government know that. But what they also know is that the average American isn't very bright. And if they can be conned into the belief that they're getting something for nothing, which is exactly the same strategy Walmart has successfully done for decades now, they'll begrudgingly agree to it because of short sighted self interest. So I hope you were able to follow that. But just to make certain, I'm going to reiterate things just a bit. Gas taxes are inherently unfair to the consumer, regardless of the tax rate, simply because the gasoline tax burden is a very meaningful, actual burden for some damn poor schmuck who's only making about 12 or 15K a year, rather than someone earning 80K a year. And on top of all that, any and all states' current gasoline tax rates is inherently misleading and unfair because there simply isn't any real relative measure to compare anything to, which means the gas tax percentage per state is ultimately meaningless and irrelevant. In conclusion, that was my real long winded ass way of explaining why there should be no gas tax. And if you're half as smart as I think you are, I just spent all this time telling you what you already knew. Until next time, this is Ernest, and that's all I've got for today.